Hey guys, tonight we're stepping barefoot onto the cool, dew-slicked earth of a pre-colonial Tongan village long before colonists and clipboards and refrigeration, just in time for the rising steam of a morning market. It's barely light out, and already the woven banana leaves are unfurling like sleepy tongues, revealing bundles of palm-wrapped treasures. Women sit cross-legged on thick mats, their hair braided tight and their laughs traveling in quiet, sleepy pulses through the still air. And if you think a morning market sounds breezy, you probably won't survive this one, because here, you'll dodge chickens, haggle over unripe breadfruit, and try not to insult anyone's fermented yam paste. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment with your location and local time. I love seeing where you're all listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge softly toward the market square, following the glow of tiny oil lamps flickering like sleepy fireflies in the early morning breeze. There's no signage here, no organized booths or chalkboard prices, just clumps of woven mats laid directly on the earth, with sellers, mostly women, unrolling their goods like secrets, root vegetables stacked like pyramids, bundles of taro leaf pinched shut with coconut midrib skewers, and rows of palm bark trays that might, just maybe, contain what you came for. It smells like smoke and syrup, earth and something faintly sour, the scent of fermented starch and dawn sweat. You're not the only one sleepwalking toward breakfast. A piglet noses past you, snorting at a basket of underripe guavas before being shooed off with a firm slap of a pandanus fan. Children weave between mats like mischievous shadows, collecting gossip and fruit samples in equal measure. The women laugh at you softly, not cruelly. Just the kind of laughter meant for someone who still has mainland softness in their ankles. Your walk is too careful, your eyes too wide. You haven't yet learned that in Tongan markets, you don't look for things. You let them find you. Someone beckons you closer. Her name, she says, is Mele, and her mat is crowded with banana leaf parcels still steaming at the edges. She nods toward one bundle and says something that might be pie, though it sounds more like a hum than a word. You try not to betray your excitement. The pies are here, but not baked. Never baked. Just folded, fermented, sweetened, and left to soak in their own earthy chemistry. Male unwraps a parcel with 2 fingers, revealing a golden smear nestled between mashed cassava and something dark and crumbly. Maybe grated coconut husk. You try not to breathe too hard on it. There's something sacred about a pie you don't dare chew too loudly. Historians still argue whether these unbaked honey pies were ever actually considered pies by the locals, or if that's just a well-meaning colonial mistranslation. There were no ovens. After all, no crusts, no slicing with forks. But what else do you call a gooey, sticky, honey-soaked treat folded lovingly into leaves and swapped with familial reverence? Nearby, another seller fans flies from a basket of pickled mango, while muttering softly to herself in a sing-song tone. You catch the word knifo-tooth and wonder briefly if that mango comes with bite marks or if she's just naming parts of the body again. Either way, you shuffle politely back to Male's mat. She offers you a second bundle. You nod solemnly like someone being entrusted with a historical artifact, which, technically, you are. This exact preparation of unbaked honey pie hasn't changed much in centuries. Oral histories trace it back long before ships or steel or missionary sugar, back to when honey was scraped from tree hollows and thickened with grated root until it hummed on your tongue like a second language. And still, some fringe theories suggest these pies weren't food at all, but coded offerings, edible prayers wrapped in starch and passed in secret to village seers or local spirits. You try not to overthink it. Your stomach growls in support of the "let's just eat it" camp. The sun starts to yawn above the trees, brushing the thatched rooftops with pale orange. The steam from the bundles begins to fade, leaving a warm, sticky glaze on your fingers. Male smirks. You've officially joined the tribe of pie holders. She hands you a palm frond to wipe your hands, one end soaked in what smells suspiciously like citronella. The bugs, she says with a nod. Like honey even more than you do. You walk on, deeper into the market's waking belly, passing clay pots stacked beside wooden ladles, and fish wrapped in pandanus leaves like shy, fragrant scrolls. There's a kind of rhythm to the marketplace now, smells rising, voices growing, the wind stirring the fabric slung between poles like lazy sails. You pass a stall selling betel nuts, stacked like cannonballs, and wonder if you should try one. You decide not to. You're barely surviving honey pie. In one corner, a very small dog is guarding a pyramid of green bananas. No one seems to own either the bananas or the dog. They exist as a single unit. Every few minutes, a chicken flutters close, and the dog growls just enough to maintain banana custody. This, you realize, is what morning looks like when commerce hasn't yet been organized into rows and spreadsheets. Here, a pie isn't a product. It's a relationship, a story passed by sticky fingers from aunt to niece, from grandmother to bride, from village to visitor. You lick a bit of honey off your thumb. It tastes like sun and root and something vaguely medicinal. You sit, finally, on a flat rock near the edge of the clearing and watch the sun roll higher into the sky. The steam from the mats has mostly faded now, replaced by soft conversation, occasional bartering squawks, and one old man trying to convince a fruit seller that his seashell necklace is definitely worth 2 bundles of ginger. And just when you think the magic's wearing off, a new smell hits the air, warm, tangy, and impossibly sweet. Another honey pie, freshly unwrapped. You lean forward. You ease off the rock and step back into the pulse of the market, guided by instinct, or maybe by the syrup-slick scent still clinging to your fingertips. The stalls seem to have shifted while you sat, not physically, of course, but in that uncanny way lively places always do. Nothing here stays still for long. Not the air, not the sounds, and definitely not the sellers. You find yourself in front of a mat stacked high with breadfruit, large, dimpled spheres with greenish-yellow skin that somehow manage to look both inviting and slightly defensive. The woman behind the mat is crouched low, chatting animatedly with the seller beside her. Their laughter bubbles up between transactions like steam from a cracked coconut. She notices you. Her grin doesn't fade as she gestures at the pile and says something in Tongan that your sleepy brain translates roughly as, "Buy one, or at least look impressed." You reach down and lift one experimentally. It's heavier than it looks, like a bowling ball made of sponge and damp bread. The woman points at it again, then at you, then raises her eyebrows as if you've been challenged to a duel. You place it back carefully. Breadfruit diplomacy is delicate work. The woman gestures to a smaller, riper one, hands it over, and with a practiced flick of her wrist, swaps it with a bunch of something resembling scallions from her neighbor's mat. No words exchanged. No coins, just an agreed glance, a twitch of the eyebrow, a knowing nod. You've just witnessed the ancient art of bartering with breadfruit. Historians still debate whether pre-colonial Tonga used anything like a universal currency. Some say polished shell tokens once played that role. Others argue value was all contextual based on relationships, seasons, and the occasional supernatural omen. But most agree that markets like these didn't need coins. They ran on reputation, rhythm, and reciprocal favor. A man passes you with 2 enormous yams balanced on his shoulders like mythological weights. He grunts hello, then shouts something indecipherable to someone across the clearing. Seconds later, a girl rushes forward with what looks like a hollowed-out gourd and swaps it for one of the yams. The exchange happens so fast you blink and nearly miss it. The gourd, as it turns out, contains honey, real honey, thick and wild and slightly cloudy, harvested from cliffside hives where bees nestle deep in volcanic rock crevices. It's stirred with a pandanus stick, slow and hypnotic, until it almost glows. Honey is more than just a sweetener here, it's a gift, a medicine. Sometimes even a test of worth. You lean in, trying to see if it smells different from what was in your pie. It does. This honey has a sharper tang, almost citrusy beneath the sweetness. The girl holding it smiles at you like she knows you've never smelled anything like it before. She dips a finger and touches it to your hand, a quiet offering. You taste. Your mouth fills with a flavor so complex you lose track of the breeze for a moment. Somewhere between mango, smoke, and oddly wild garlic. You mutter something resembling thanks. She shrugs. It's nothing. She already got a yam out of the deal. And then someone giggles behind you. You turn to find 3 kids seated cross-legged near a pile of oddly shaped root vegetables. They're mimicking you. your awkward tasting, your exaggerated sniffing, your barely hidden tourist face. One of them even squints and licks a leaf dramatically. You smile and raise your sticky hands in surrender. The giggling erupts into full-blown laughter, and the market around you doesn't even pause. This is normal. Laughter is part of the trade here. 2. A woman selling smoked fish waves you over next. Her hair is wound in an enormous, gravity-defying bun and pinned with a shell that looks older than your entire wardrobe. She's arranged her fish like spokes of a wheel, each one pointing toward a small clay pot of chili paste so red it might glow in the dark. She speaks quickly and softly, alternating between gossip, prices, and something about a neighboring village's dance festival. You catch just enough to know someone's cousin might be eloping, and that last week's pie was under-honeyed by general consensus. She offers you a bit of fish wrapped in leaf, pressed against a square of roasted breadfruit. You accept it, chew, and immediately wonder if your mouth will survive the chili. It won't. You smile bravely anyway. You catch snippets of debate between two elderly men squatting beside a log, arguing over whether this year's honey is stronger than last's. One insists the cliff bees are angrier now, possibly due to shifting wind patterns. The other blames the young for climbing the hives too early. The honey listens, he mutters darkly. You decide not to ask follow-up questions. Nearby, two women swap a pile of guavas for a necklace made of intricately woven hibiscus fibers. No one seems to notice that the guavas are partially bruised. Or maybe that's the point. Offering fruit that's already halfway to fermentation is its own kind of bargaining chip. There's a practical elegance to it. Why waste time with rules when everyone already knows the dance? Some fringe anthropologists have even suggested the marketplace functioned as a kind of emotional economy, a place to perform generosity, test boundaries, and negotiate reputations far more than just exchange goods. They point to the singing fruit sellers, the theatrical breadfruit swaps, even the performative scolding of mischievous children as signs of a much deeper social fabric. You watch one child carefully place a papaya near a stranger's foot, step back, and giggle until he's caught. The woman turns, pretends to be outraged, and chases him for 2 steps before bursting into laughter. Transaction complete. The sun is higher now. The shade cast by palm thatch overhangs is shrinking, and more sellers arrive with morning harvests bundled on their shoulders. You can smell raw cassava and damp loamy soil, as if the market is exhaling everything it's gathered from the hills and rivers and cliffs. You pass by Mail's mat again. She's sold most of her pies now, and in their place sit a few lone banana leaves and one very sleepy cat. She waves you over, gestures to the last pie, then points to the sun and makes a slicing motion across her neck. The message is clear. Eat it now or regret it forever. You nod, crouch, unwrap it. The honey is even thicker now, congealed slightly, layered with something toasted, maybe scraped coconut rind. It tastes deeper, like morning. Deciding to end, you sit back, smile, and let the noise of bartering breadfruit swirl around you like warm wind. You wander slowly, still sticky-fingered, still woozy from that second pie, and soon find yourself drawn toward a different rhythm. A low buzzing that seems to swell and recede like ocean waves, but sharper, almost jittery. It's the bees, or more precisely, the women who keep them. They sit cross-legged in the dappled shade of a breadfruit tree, surrounded by tall, narrow gourds that lean slightly like sleepy sentinels. Their hands move in careful motions, untying, retightening, brushing gently at surfaces with smoke-stained feathers. One of the gourds is open, and a dozen bees hover over its rim, as if trying to remember whether this was home, a trap, or dessert. You try not to flinch when one buzzes past your ear. These are cliff bees. You're told stingy and opinionated. The kind that build hives in unreachable places, volcanic walls, wind-carved outcrops, even the occasional hollowed tree trunk near ancestral burial mounds. Harvesting their honey is not just dangerous, it's a generational talent. A boy from the neighboring village once tried to do it solo. He came back with 2 stings and no pants. No one really knows how he lost them, but the bees have been smug ever since. The woman tending the open gourd is named Lupe, and she gestures for you to sit, which you do too quickly. Your knee pops audibly. She smiles like that happens all the time. It probably does. She picks up a flat, burnt-looking blade made from shell and palm bark and uses it to gently scrape honey from the inside of a beeswax-lined lid. The honey is darker than what you tasted earlier, almost amber, but cloudy, speckled with pollen dust and maybe a few legs. She shrugs. Extra flavor. Historians still argue whether bees were intentionally domesticated in Tonga or simply coexisted with the people in a cautious, mutually beneficial détente. Some records suggest clay bee houses may have been shaped to mimic certain cliff structures. Others say the bees just liked the company. The gourds themselves are strange tools of the trade. Grown intentionally with necks that curve like eels, they're hollowed and dried, then sealed with leaves and bound with strips of banana fiber. Each one is different, some stained with smoke, others etched with shallow markings that could be decorative or instructive. No one agrees. Lupe pulls one closer and taps its base. A dull echo, like a drum that forgot it used to be musical. She holds it to your ear. You hear nothing. She raises her eyebrows, taps again, and this time, a faint buzz stirs from deep inside. One bee crawls sluggishly from the gourd's mouth, pauses on the rim, and lifts into the air like a tiny, grumpy spirit. You whisper an apology. Lupe doesn't laugh. She just nods, like she remembers her first apology to a bee. 2. The honey from this gourd is especially prized, not just for its flavor, but for its rumored healing properties. One local tale claims a village elder cured her failing eyesight by smearing it on her eyelids every night under a full moon. Another says a child once fell into a coma from a fever, only to wake after 3 drops were placed beneath his tongue. Lupe doesn't confirm or deny these stories. She simply hands you a sliver of banana bark topped with a dab and waits. It tastes like earth and storm and something metallic. Not unpleasant, just serious. The kind of flavor that makes you sit up straighter. A few bees buzz back, dancing in lazy spirals overhead. You're told they can recognize faces, that they remember kindness and offense, that a bee wronged might follow you to the ocean. One woman swears her cousin was followed for 3 days after knocking over a honey gourd in anger. The cousin eventually made peace by leaving a string of crushed hibiscus petals leading to her front door. Still, no one's entirely sure if that worked or if the bees just got bored. You watch as Lupe rubs a smear of honey on the outside of one gourd, then seals it with a tight knot of bark and lays it on its side. It will sit for a moon cycle, absorbing the scent of wild turmeric from the nearby fields. This resting honey becomes thicker, spicier, and is often used in marriage offerings or funeral rites. Because in Tonga, honey isn't just food, it's a memory keeper. Some fringe researchers even suggest that certain families pass down honey blends like recipes or heirlooms, altering them slightly over generations to reflect personal loss, triumph, or geography. One blend might taste more floral if a grandmother lived near hibiscus groves. Another might carry the tang of smoke if a father harvested near volcanic vents. You look again at the gourd. It's just a vessel, but it holds 1,000 stings and stories. Lupe stands, shakes her fingers, and 2 bees lift from her skin without protest. You wonder if they're trained or simply too polite to bite her. She offers you a narrow stick wrapped in gauze. It's a bee lure, she says, dipped in honey and lavender sap. If you wave it slowly near your ear, the bees might sing to you, or not. They're moody. You take the stick, wave it gently, nothing. You wait. Then, the faintest vibration. A bee lands, walks across your thumb like it owns the joint, looks up at you probably, then flies away. Lupe nods again. This is good. You've passed the test. Or maybe you've just not annoyed anyone yet. Either way, you're allowed to keep walking. You rise, legs a little numb, hands still sticky with medicinal magic. As you leave the shade of the breadfruit tree, the market noise rushes back in louder now, more urgent. The day is warming. The pie vendors are dwindling. The pigs are growing bolder. And somewhere, a gourd hums with bees that remember everything. The market's tempo shifts as the sun lifts fully above the trees. It's warmer now, and there's a languid, syrupy heaviness in the air as if the morning itself is thickening into molasses. The banana leaves laid out on the ground have gone limp at the edges, curling slightly in the heat. You fan yourself with a bit of woven palm, which works for approximately 3 seconds before you give up and just accept the humidity like everyone else seems to. You're drawn toward a shaded clearing at the far edge of the market, where a cluster of women in deep red wraps are seated in a loose circle. Their hands are busy with something wrapping, pressing, folding, and whatever it is. It smells sweet and unmistakably fermented, a scent like mashed banana mixed with flowers left too long in the sun. You already know, this is where the honey pies are born. You sit cross-legged nearby, nodding respectfully. One of the women raises an eyebrow but doesn't shoo you away. That's as good as permission. The process is oddly hypnotic. No ovens, no fire, just raw ingredients, human hands, and time. The base of the pie is mashed root, often cassava, or sometimes taro, depending on what's in season. The starch is pounded into a dense paste, then spread onto a long strip of banana leaf that's been softened with steam and elbow grease. A woman named Aniva works closest to you. Her wrists are covered in tiny inked dots. One of them spirals into a tiny turtle. Another looks suspiciously like a grinning moon. She hums as she works, rhythmically, as though the song shapes the pie. She spoons a glossy smear of honey across the paste, using the back of a carved shell to smooth it into whorls, never in a line. She murmurs to no one in particular. Lines are for snakes and soldiers. We swirl. It's one of those offhand remarks that might be metaphor, or superstition, or just very niche baking advice. Historians still debate whether these unbaked honey pies were strictly ceremonial, or if they were just the ancient equivalent of takeout. There's no universal answer. Some oral histories suggest pies were once only made for offerings to ancestors, to spirits, to the sea. Others insist they were everyday fare, eaten by children on fishing trips and travelers on long canoe journeys. There's even one disputed European account from the 1700s that describes Tongan villagers consuming leaf-wrapped gelatinous tarts with evident pleasure, which is the fanciest way anyone has ever described eating a sticky handful of fermented starch. Aniva folds the banana leaf over the top of the swirl, tucking the edges with a thumb that looks like it's been making these pies for 40 years. The bundle is then tied with a sliver of coconut fiber and left on a hot stone to not cook exactly, but warm, just enough to let the flavors settle. There's no browning, no rising, no crust. But after an hour, the texture becomes smooth, slightly firm, and depending on the variety of honey used, sometimes a bit sparkly on the tongue. You're offered a bundle. You unwrap it slowly, reverently. This one has a little extra twist to the leaf and a faint dusting of ground coconut bark on the surface. You bite. It is sweet, but not in the cloying, store-bought sense. It's sweet like early memories, sweet like the smell of rain on dry stone. The cassava base melts into the honey swirl, and somewhere in there is the ghost of ginger, or maybe galangal. Your brain fuzzes a little at the edges. Someone giggles. You've gone pie drunk. A woman beside Aniva chuckles and says something that makes the others laugh, a kind of teasing. You think. She gestures at your mouth, where a bit of pie has betrayed you. Aniva leans over and wipes it with a leaf scrap. Sticky face is lucky face, she says, entirely serious. They continue folding. You watch. Every movement is deliberate but unhurried. There is no sense of rush, no looming deadline. One woman stops mid-fold to tell a story about her brother's attempt to impress a girl with a triple-wrapped honey pie. He folded the leaf wrong, and the whole thing exploded during the warming process. She claims the girl married someone else that same week. It becomes clear. The folding matters. It's not just containment, it's courtship. A poorly folded pie can insult a cousin. A well-folded one can earn a dance. There's even a saying, fold the leaf, or fold your pride. Some fringe anthropologists believe the honey pie was once used to settle disputes. Instead of punishment or long discussions, you'd be asked to deliver a pie. How you folded it tight and careful, or sloppy and rushed, revealed your true feelings. Forgiveness was not guaranteed, but a well-made pie helped your case. There's a moment when everything goes quiet. One of the women lifts a finished pie, closes her eyes, and presses it to her forehead. The others follow suit. It's brief, no more than a breath, but the silence has weight. You later learn this is a kind of blessing. The pie carries your breath, your mood, even your regrets. You press your own to your forehead, The banana leaf is warm, the honey inside almost purring with trapped sunlight. As the ceremony ends, the women begin packing their pies into shallow baskets. Some will be taken to neighboring villages, others will be left at crossroads, river mouths, or sacred stones. Not all pies are meant to be eaten. Some are meant to be felt. Aniva looks at you, tilts her head. Take one more. She says, the sun's too high to argue. You don't resist. You take it and follow her gaze toward the path leading out of the market. But you're not ready to leave yet. Not while your hands are still sweet. Not while the scent of warm leaf and wild honey clings to your skin. You head deeper into the market, unbaked pie cradled like a secret, ready for whatever strange flavor comes next. You duck beneath a low-hanging tapestry of woven reeds, stepping into a narrower corridor of the market. This one less fragrant, more chaotic. Gone is the hum of honey and folded pies. Here, voices rise and clash like waves against a reef. Laughter, bargaining, and the occasional squawk of an indignant chicken echo off the walls of palm-thatched stalls. A cluster of vendors has gathered in a tight circle. At the center, a single, limp banana leaf parcel resting on a polished coconut shell. You sense the tension immediately. Two women are arguing not loudly, but sharply. One points at the parcel, the other folds her arms. A third woman, much older, sits with her arms around her knees and watches like she's seen this scene 1,000 times and is mostly here for the entertainment. This is not a pie swap gone wrong. This is something else. You edge closer. A man whispers beside you, spoiled pie. You blink, spoiled. How is that even possible? Wasn't everything fermented, steamed, folded in leaves and joy? But then you notice it. The edge of the leaf is discolored browning where it should still be greenish gold. A small fly perches on the knot. That pie didn't ferment, it festered. Market rules are simple but serious. If you trade a spoiled item, you're expected to make it right. A new pie, a better pie. Or, if you're stubborn, you can appeal to coconut shell justice, which is precisely what's happening now. The coconut shell rests on a woven mat set between the two women. Inside it is a carved shell bead, something neutral, like a coin but not really. The woman on the left declares her case, gesturing wildly. She claims she received the pie from the other woman, unwrapped it in good faith, and found rot where there should have been sweetness. The accused woman insists it wasn't her pie. Someone must have switched the parcels either deliberately or through pure market chaos. She argues that her honey doesn't spoil, which is, to be fair, a pretty bold defense. The elder woman leans forward. Without saying a word, she lifts the coconut shell, shakes it, and tosses it onto the mat like a sleepy dice roll. The bead lands on one side, light side up. That's a ruling, not a definitive truth, necessarily, but a verdict. The crowd murmurs. Judgment has been passed. The woman who sold the pie nods, exhales, and accepts the result. She unwraps a second pie from her basket, fresh and perfectly swirled, and hands it over. The spoiled pie is taken away. Its fate uncertain, possibly buried, possibly thrown to the pigs, possibly offered to the spirit of market mischief, who apparently loves drama and mild gastrointestinal chaos. You glance around and realize no one seems particularly alarmed. This happens, not often, but enough that there's a system. Coconut shell trials, according to some scholars, were ancient precursors to formal dispute resolution in island societies. They weren't necessarily about truth, but about restoring balance. Public fairness, not private satisfaction. A fringe theory one you kind of love suggests that the coconut shells used in these trials were treated with subtle oils to influence their landing. If you were especially persuasive, you might coat the inside of the shell with turmeric oil to give your side more bounce. No one ever proved this, of course, but the idea that market justice relied partly on secret root oils and sleight of hand makes you grin. You step back as the circle disperses. One of the bystanders offers you a piece of roasted yam wrapped in pandanus leaf. It's a kind of informal peace offering for watching justice unfold. You accept, Chew slowly. It's dry and warm, slightly nutty. Not as thrilling as a honey pie, but grounding. As you eat, another nearby conversation rises in pitch. A boy with red hibiscus petals in his hair is arguing with an older vendor about a fishtail. Apparently, he believes it was snuck into his purchase to weigh it down. The vendor insists it's a bonus. You smile. That one's not going to coconut shell court. That one's going to end with a smack upside the head, and probably a very creative insult. Behind you, a woman with a wide hat and a toothless grin sells bundles of dried seaweed tied with string made of woven bark. You watch as she dips her fingers into a bowl of thick honey, swirls it over the seaweed, and wraps it again. Sweet, salty bundles for travelers. They sell faster than pies. You overhear a murmured story about a famous pie scandal years ago. A woman who claimed to have discovered a third swirl in her parcel, which, depending on who you ask, either meant she was cursed or destined to become a high priestess. No one could agree. The pie was reburied, the swirl unconfirmed. Some say it was just an overzealous honey pour. There's a lesson here, something about how even the most informal economies require structure, trust, ritual, and a healthy fear of overripe starch. You walk past a mat where small children are being taught how to fold pie leaves using sticks instead of filling. Practice pies. Their hands fumble, leaves tear. An elder woman corrects one with a gentle slap on the wrist. Too tight, and it splits. Too loose, and it leaks. Like people, a good folding technique, you realize, isn't about making it pretty. It's about resilience. A pie that survives the heat of the sun, the jostle of travel, and the sticky fingers of 5 cousins is a pie worth trusting. And if it doesn't, well, there's always the coconut shell. You find yourself smiling as you move back toward the main square. You've survived your first scandal, witnessed justice, eaten questionable yam, and your hands still smell faintly of leaf and honey. You haven't even reached noon yet. You wander again, pulled by scent and instinct, more than intention, until you find a quiet corner of the market where the air feels different. Still sticky, yes, but tinged with something sharper like bruised lemongrass and old clay. The laughter from earlier sections fades behind you, replaced by murmurs and the occasional clink of pottery. Here, things are quieter, not solemn exactly, but less performative. Fewer giggles, more glances. You've found the section some locals call the whisper mats. It's the place for curiosities, cursed pots, rare herbs, and things you're not supposed to ask about. 3 women sit in a crescent formation on flattened palm mats, their wares arranged in exacting symmetry. Shallow bowls of orange resin, bundles of dried leaves with edges curled like forgotten letters, and most noticeably, rows of small clay pots sealed with waxy black paste. Each pot is no bigger than a coconut. Each is marked with a single glyph scrawled in what looks like charcoal and possibly regret. You crouch down beside the nearest woman, who offers you nothing. Not a smile, not a pitch, not even a nod. She simply taps the rim of one of her pots and murmurs, "No opening. Not today." Naturally, your curiosity triples. You ask what's inside. She taps the pot again. Nothing. That wants to stay nothing. Perfectly reassuring. One of the neighboring vendors gestures you closer and lifts a different pot. This one's lid is already cracked, and she peels it open slowly, dramatically. Inside is honey, but not golden and inviting. This honey is dark, thick, like molasses that's been brooding. It smells like tree bark, salt, and something faintly metallic. She dips a twig into the honey and offers it to you. You hesitate. She shrugs, as if to say, "Suit yourself," then tastes it herself and nods in satisfaction. Not poisoned. Probably, you give in. The taste is immediately disorienting, bitter, then sweet, then somehow peppery. It curls your tongue, then smooths it again like a lullaby sung in reverse. Your eyes water slightly. She grins. "This honey sits for 9 moons, she says, with bark, smoke, and secrets." Historians still argue whether these clay pots were simply long-term storage for medicinal honeys, or if they served a more ceremonial, possibly spiritual purpose. Some theories point to the glyphs each unique, often passed down through generations. Others suggest the pots absorb dreams, which sounds charming until you realize not all dreams are good. You glance at another pot, its glyph resembling an eye inside a spiral. The vendor notices and leans closer. That one. Bad pie dreams. Lots of leaking. Very sticky nightmares. You try not to laugh. She doesn't. Apparently, if someone had a series of ruined pies if their folding went wrong, or their honey kept attracting ants, or if they accidentally insulted the pie spirits, they might commission one of these pots to hold the trouble. Honey is placed inside with herbs and soot from the last failed fire, then sealed and hidden away until things settle. A kind of edible exorcism. A fringe belief mostly whispered, rarely confirmed, suggests that these pots move themselves if ignored too long. One tale insists a cursed honey jar was found floating at sea, completely intact, and was respectfully reburied inland after 3 fishers fell ill. You resist the urge to ask how many pots here are cursed versus just extremely fermented. You don't really want to know. At the far end of the mat, a child crouches beside a cracked jar, his fingers sticky with something amber. You see him glance around, then quickly scoop out a dollop with his finger and pop it in his mouth. He freezes. One of the vendors notices, raises an eyebrow. Sticky fingers invite sticky fate, she says. The boy chews faster. She doesn't chase him. She just points to the cracked jar and mutters something under her breath. You can't catch the exact words, but the air around the pot seems to cool by 3 degrees. The boy runs off. You make a mental note to keep your hands to yourself. You watch as one of the women takes a pot and walks a slow circle around her mat, sprinkling a powder that smells like toasted coconut mixed with charred ginger. She does it rhythmically, her bare feet soft against the ground. No one interrupts her. The other vendors glance away politely. You learn that this ritual performed weekly is meant to cleanse not the pot, but the space around it. The honey remembers. One woman tells you, if it feels unwelcome, it hardens. If it feels mocked, it leaks. You imagine your kitchen back home judging you with the same rules. Your spices would rebel. Your toaster would develop opinions. Still, there's a kind of beauty in this market logic. Everything is personal. Nothing is just stuff. Even honey carries mood, and pots hold grudges. Before you leave, one vendor presses a small knot of bark into your hand. Keep it near sweet things, she says. It reminds them to behave. You thank her, though you're not entirely sure what behavior to expect from a dessert. As you walk away, you feel the eyes of the whisper mats on your back. Not hostile, just curious, judging your steps, wondering whether you'll treat your honey with the appropriate amount of respect and paranoia. You glance at the bark knot again. It smells faintly of cinnamon and firewood. You tuck it into your pocket, and you keep walking. You don't notice it at first, but somewhere between the whisper mats and the roasted yam stall, the air shifts again. The scent of clay and smoke gives way to ripe papaya and sun-warmed citrus peel. You follow your nose, and the gentle drone of melodic chanting toward the open eastward side of the market, where the breeze from the ocean drifts in like a sleepy exhale. Here, you find the fruit vendors, not just sellers, but singers. They sit beside pyramids of mangoes, papayas, guavas, and lime bundles tied with hibiscus string, and each has a different melody humming through the air. Soft, winding songs without words, just elongated vowels and subtle throat vibrations. It's not for the customers, it's for the fruit. One woman, her hair adorned with tiny shells, sits in front of a mountain of golden papayas, humming a low, looping tune like a lullaby with no clear beginning or end. She catches your curious glance and taps a papaya. Helps them ripen, she says, smiling. Like singing to a baby. You sit beside her for a moment, watching the fruit glisten in the light. The chant is oddly relaxing, slow, hypnotic, the kind of sound that invites you to forget what you were worrying about. The papayas, apparently, respond. According to her, if you sing the right song and keep your mood level, the fruit knows when to sweeten and when to wait. Historians still argue whether this tradition of fruit song was rooted in practical botany. Maybe the sound vibrations encourage ripening, or whether it's more of a cultural ritual meant to build patience and connection with the land. Either way, the melodies have survived, and the fruit, gloriously soft and sticky. Nearby, another vendor sings to limes. Her song is more playful, almost teasing. She claims her limes enjoy being challenged, and that her tone makes them sour in just the right way. Too soft, she warns, and you get lazy limes. No kick. A few steps away, a cluster of fishwives not currently selling any fish sit beneath a fraying woven canopy, half in shade, half in sun, watching the sky like bored astronomers. One of them mutters something about shoulder clouds. Another shakes her head and points to a dark smudge near the horizon. You lean in. Rain. She snorts. Not for 3 days. That's a sea change smudge, probably brought on by someone baking something they shouldn't. You blink. Wait, someone's baking. All 5 women hiss in unison, as if you'd just said something unspeakably rude. They explain half in joke, half in warning that heat from fire baking messes with the wind spirits, and the clouds can smell guilt. You chuckle nervously. One leans in and whispers, last time someone used an oven in the dry season. We lost 6 banana trees and a goat. You're not sure whether the banana trees died or just walked off in protest. They go back to cloud watching. One of them starts humming, and another adds a clacking rhythm with her tongue. You realize they're making weather music, not to change the weather, just to remind it they're paying attention. A fringe theory among ethnometeorologists, yes, that's a thing, suggests that island weather prediction was once 60% observation, truthful storytelling, and 10% dramatic flair. The flair, apparently, helps keep the storms humble. One of the women offers you a slice of starfruit dusted with powdered ginger. It's tart and spicy and wakes up your mouth like a tiny slap. You thank her, and she waves you off with a flourish that means something between "You're welcome and don't mention the baking again." You walk on, still chewing, past rows of stacked coconut husks and baskets of turmeric root. A young boy is selling something that looks like braided vines. He explains that they're wine ropes good for tying down mats and, allegedly, slowing bad weather if tossed into the ocean at the right moment. You ask how many work. He shrugs. Depends on the weather's mood. A girl beside him is trying to sell lime peel bracelets. You're skeptical until she waves one near your face and you're instantly refreshed. It smells like the best part of summer. You buy one. She ties it gently around your wrist and tells you it'll ward off insects. Bad luck. And grumpy elders, no promises on roosters. Though that's oddly specific. You circle back to the papaya singer, who's now rearranging her fruits into a spiral formation. Helps them talk. She says, they gossip. Ripen faster if they're near the juicy ones. You nod solemnly. You've spent enough time here to know that everything gossips. The honey, the fish, the weather, and definitely the pies. You sit for a while longer, letting the hum of the songs and the warmth of the sun soak into your skin. A breeze lifts the edge of a woven mat beside you. A few unbaked pies rest beneath it, hidden from sight but not from scent. You lie back, hands behind your head, and let the sounds wash over you. Fruit lullabies, weather predictions, and the occasional insult lobbed at an invisible cloud. This isn't just a market. It's a living map of taste, time, and tuned papayas. You close your eyes. A papaya rolls softly against your foot. It approves of your vibe. By now, the market has stretched into the full embrace of midday. The heat clings to your skin like a second shirt, and even the pigs look dazed. But the rhythm hasn't slowed, it's shifted. The chaos has mellowed, giving way to quieter rituals and intentional visits. Everyone who came to browse has either committed to a purchase or settled into the shaded edges to nap or gossip. That includes you. You wander toward the inland slope of the market where the trees thicken again and the chatter thins out. This is the royal path unmarked, informal, but unmistakably respected. The fruit mats and honey bundles grow a little tidier here. The mats are cleaner. The pies are folded with a crispness you haven't seen elsewhere, like origami with pride issues. This is where the runners come. Young men and women with sinewy arms and suspiciously polished sandals, sent from noble households to collect. No loud announcements, no flaunting, just a quiet nod, a whispered name, and a purposeful walk. One of them passes you now, head high, carrying a small basket lined with starched linen. It contains exactly 2 honey pies, a carved gourd of ocean water, and a bunch of nearly translucent bananas. You've never seen fruit look so nervous. You ask a nearby vendor if the royal family really eats unbaked pies just like everyone else. She snorts. They eat them better. She explains that the nobles have long-standing pie relationships with specific families' generations of matrilineal trust wrapped in banana leaves. These aren't just transactions. They're edible alliances. One misplaced swirl and someone's second cousin might lose her marriage offer. A badly folded leaf and suddenly a fishing grant is delayed. Historians still argue whether these royal honey pies were ever officially recorded as part of political treaties. One missionary account describes a ceremonial starch gift presented with deferential hands, but whether it was a pie or just mashed yam is unclear. Still, the stories persist about chiefs refusing foreign gifts, but requesting pie parcels instead, about entire negotiations falling apart because a pie was delivered without the proper leaf twine. You pass a vendor who's carefully dusting her pies with what looks like powdered hibiscus flower. For weddings, she murmurs, royal pies get flowers, always. You ask why. She shrugs. Because plain pies say plain promises. There's a fringe belief that a certain noble once proposed marriage through pie entirely 15 pies sent in a precise pattern, each with different honey and root blends. The recipient decoded the flavors like love letters. One tasted of grief, another of longing. The last like a promise. She accepted, then reportedly burned the wrappers during the ceremony to seal the message. Romantic or passive-aggressive? Unclear. You see one runner pause to examine a pie before accepting it. The vendor tenses. The runner smells the leaf, peeks inside, then nods. The vendor exhales. This wasn't about quality. This was a trust test. A group of small children plays nearby with leftover banana leaves, mimicking the runners with exaggerated, regale postures. One little girl folds a leaf around a rock, holds it aloft, and declares herself pie queen of the eastern trees. Everyone bows dramatically. She trips, giggles, and is instantly declared too clumsy for the crown. You sit down under a shade tree to rest. A young woman arrives with a pie basket and sits beside you uninvited. She opens it carefully and removes a single parcel wrapped in crimson-dyed leaf. The pie inside glows golden and firm. She doesn't speak for a while. Then finally, softly, my aunt makes these for the high chief, but she's getting old. I have to learn the folds. You nod. She continues, eyes on the pie. You don't just fold for flavor. You fold for feeling. If you're bitter, it leaks. If you rush, it tears. It knows. She offers you a bite. You hesitate. It's for royalty. She shrugs. So are we. In moments, you try it. It tastes like sunlight over quiet water, like something that hasn't decided to be happy or sad yet, but is deeply at peace with either option. She nods as you chew. See? You do. She packs the pie again and disappears back into the trees, her basket swinging gently like a promise. You rise. Walk further inland. More runners appear. More parcels disappear. The marketplace breathes around them, gifting, trading, passing secrets wrapped in starch and syrup. The vendors know what's at stake. A pie isn't just sweet. It's a symbol. It's a signal. It's a softly delivered vote of confidence. One last runner pauses near a vendor who hands her 2 bundles, one bright, one dark. The runner looks confused. The vendor whispers something, then pats her hand, sweet and bitter. He'll know what that means. You hope it's not a breakup. You circle back toward the heart of the market, where common pies are being sold with laughter and the occasional price haggled through storytelling. You smile. It's strange how universal sweetness is, even when it comes with rules, even when it's wrapped in royal expectation, even when you're only allowed one bite. But if you're lucky, that one bite is enough. You return to the pie mats near the southern edge of the marketplace, where the sun now bakes the ground into a soft shimmer, and shade is a sought-after currency. Here, the pie makers are no longer folding, they're airing. The banana leaf bundles lie spaced evenly on smooth stones, gently warming without ever meeting flame. They call it heating by patience. You crouch beside a cluster of women and children, carefully placing leaf bundles on a wide, flat slab of a volcanic rock. The surface is warm to the touch, but not scorching, just enough to coax the starch into firmness and the honey into that perfect, viscous sigh. No coals, no embers, just sun. leaf, and ritual. This is the fireless oven. Someone explains behind you. You turn and find an elder man with a woven hat shaped like an upturned canoe. No wood, no smoke, no shame. You ask why he added that last part. He squints. Some still try to bake, still think pie must puff to be real. But puffed pie is coward pie. Noted. You settle in beside him, both of you watching the bundles like spectators at a very slow, very quiet sport. He introduces himself as Sione and begins to share the lore of heatless baking. According to him, the fireless method isn't just tradition, it's preservation. It keeps the honey pure, preserves the memory of the root. Flame changes the story. He says, sun reveals it. Historians still debate whether this pie-warming method originated independently on Tonga or was adapted from other Pacific islands. Some suggest it emerged as a necessity during periods of fuel scarcity. Others believe it was always deliberate, a conscious rejection of flame in favor of time. Sione insists it's more than culinary. Flame cooks, sun listens, you nod. You've stopped questioning the metaphors. At this point, the sun probably has its own diary. Nearby, a girl uses a pandanus fan to keep flies away from a line of particularly glossy pies. A dog watches her with a patience bordering on theological. You ask her if the fans are just for flies. No, she says, they're part of the recipe. She waves the fan in wide, practiced strokes, and you notice something. The honey pies breathe. Tiny ripples form on their surface when the breeze touches them. The fans help regulate the pie's outer sheen, like turning pages in the book, just enough to keep the ink from smudging. There's a fringe culinary belief among Tongan matriarchs that a pie properly fanned during sun warming will never sour, no matter how long it's stored. They call it whisper honey, the kind that stays soft even after 7 moons in a bundle. You're offered a fan. You wave it hesitantly over a pie. Nothing happens. Sione chuckles. You must want it to cool. If you fan like you're shooing insects, you insult the honey. You adjust your motion. Slower, more respectful. The honey ripple returns. Well, he says, at least the pie doesn't hate you. Praise enough. As you keep fanning, a lull settles over the clearing. Even the chickens grow still, heads tucked under wings, dreaming of discarded coconut husks. The children stretch out on mats and draw in the dirt with sticks, sketching what look like very interpretive pies. You lie back too, staring up at the canopy of tangled palm fronds above. A bird chirps a 3-note call that sounds suspiciously like a knock-knock joke in melody. A woman begins to hum a low tune, rising and falling like a pie's breath. It's not the same as the fruit songs earlier. This one is softer, slower, more for the pies than the people. You glance around. Everyone is silent now, watching the pies. The rhythm of the market has paused. This is the moment the pies decide. You're told whether to set properly, whether the honey inside will firm or slide, whether they'll be sweet, bitter, or stubborn. If you talk during this moment, they say, you confuse the pies, so you stay quiet. Minutes pass. The sun reaches its peak, and then, one by one, the women begin to gently prod each bundle. Some are pressed lightly, others are tapped. One is lifted to the ear and shaken like a gift. And then the verdicts come in. Good. Too loose. Perfect swirl. Too much leaf. Spoke too early. You watch the pie you fanned be tested. The woman unwraps just a corner, sniffs, presses, then gives a slow nod. Balance, she says. You beam. Sione grins and claps you on the shoulder. First pie approval. You'll be insufferable by sunset. You sit up as the women begin repacking the cooled pies for sale or offering. Some are placed in hand-woven baskets with bits of charmed bark or turmeric leaves tucked inside. One pie is marked with a thin blue line of flower pigment. You ask why? For night trade. The vendor says, it glows faintly in starlight. You don't question it. As the pies are gathered, one of the children breaks into a song you haven't heard before, something halfway between a chant and a counting rhyme. It includes the words, honey pie, footprint, and grandmother's elbow. You have no idea what it means, but everyone joins in. You walk away carrying a pie that wasn't meant for you, but was approved anyway. You've helped it breathe. After all, that counts. And now you're ready to discover what else the market can whisper after the pies have spoken. You've barely taken a dozen steps when you hear the squawking. Not the usual market chicken business. This is theatrical, urgent. A high-pitched series of outraged clucks that seem to be arguing in full sentences. You round a corner just in time to witness what can only be described as a rooster-related scandal in progress. In the center of a crowd stands a boy young, maybe 10, with a very indignant rooster clutched to his chest like an accordion. He doesn't quite know how to play. The rooster is glaring at a half-eaten honey pie lying tragically on the ground, its leaf wrapping half-shredded. Its precious filling trailing in sticky spirals. The crowd is buzzing. You don't even have to ask. Someone whispers, "The rooster did it." Of course he did. The boy insists the pie was already damaged, that the rooster only inspected it. A woman from a neighboring Madarm's crossed, eyebrow high, insists she saw the rooster peck the pie, then flap away with honey on its beak. The rooster clucks again, as if personally insulted by the accusation. The situation is escalating. Pie theft isn't a light matter here, and animal involvement complicates things. A man with elaborate shoulder tattoos and an official-looking walking stick steps forward, clears his throat, and declares, "Trial." The rooster trial is about to begin. The boy places the rooster carefully on a folded mat in the center of the crowd. It struts once, glares at the half-eaten pie, and then begins to peck at the edge of the mat like it's already bored. Two women are called forth as witnesses. One claims the rooster has been eyeing pies for days. Another insists it's innocent that she once saw this very bird peck ants off a child's leg like a hero. The elder overseeing the trial raises a coconut shell and sets it beside the crumpled pie. Inside, a stone bead waits. The boy and the rooster both lean in as if they understand the stakes. Historians still argue whether these animal trials were symbolic teaching tools or actual legal customs. There's sparse documentation, but oral traditions mention pigs, dogs, and once even a particularly rude parrot being tried for minor transgressions in the village square. Whether the rulings held any legal weight is unclear, but the embarrassment definitely did. The crowd falls silent as the elder lifts the shell, shakes it, and rolls it onto the mat. The bead lands dark side up. The rooster is found guilty. What happens next is not what you expect. The elder nods solemnly, then plucks a hibiscus flower from behind his ear and places it gently on the rooster's back, marked for monitoring. He says, the crowd breaks into applause and laughter. The rooster fluffs its feathers proudly, like it's won something. The boy scoops him up again, both triumphant and slightly sticky. Justice, apparently, can be symbolic and involve floral accessories. You linger as the trial dissolves into storytelling. A vendor named Lotto waves you over, still chuckling, and offers you a reparation pie. It's customary, she explains after any scandal. Pie must be redistributed to restore harmony. This one is a mango honey blend with a pinch of sea salt. You bite in. It's unexpectedly savory, almost like a caramelized stew trapped in a dessert. You love it immediately. You taste the balance. Lotto asks, salt makes the sweet behave. You nod. It's a flavor you didn't know you needed. She tells you this blend is popular after disputes. Salt, honey, and mango, 3 strong personalities. Working it out. Some pies are for love, she says. This one is for forgiveness. There's a fringe belief that animals accused of stealing pies actually carried messages from the spirit realm testing human judgment, challenging fairness, or just reminding people not to get too precious with their food. If a rooster wants your pie, Lotto says, maybe your pie needed humbling. You look back at the rooster, now strutting through the crowd with his flower still pinned like a badge of chaotic honor. Several children are following him, tossing crumbs like offerings. Someone calls him Chief Peck. You sit with Lotto a while longer, trading bites of pie and bits of gossip. She's been selling here since she was a girl. Her mother taught her to fold pie leaves in silence, but her grandmother taught her to whisper while folding. The pie absorbs it, she says. Some stories are too sweet to say aloud. One of the children nearby draws a picture of the rooster in the dirt, his beak open mid-crow, a pie in one claw, and a flower crown on his head. You try not to laugh too hard. Eventually, the trial becomes just another ripple in the market rhythm. People return to their mats, the pies return to their heating stones, and the rooster, now unbothered, settles on a shady perch to preen. You rise, brushing crumbs from your lap, and continue your stroll. The scent of something new, a hint of burnt ginger and roasted coconut, pulls you onward. But as you walk, you carry something small, the taste of salt and honey, the memory of a pie that taught forgiveness, and the image of a rooster who, for one glorious hour, ruled the market with nothing but audacity and a hibiscus on his back. You drift through the market now as if moving underwater, slow, dreamy, a little too full of pie. The sun has begun its lazy descent, shifting the light into something softer, more golden, more forgiving. Vendors start to tilt their woven mats to catch the last rays. The air carries fewer shouts and more murmurs. This is the hour of low voices and long shadows. You're drawn to a narrow path that winds behind the yam stalls, past a sleeping goat and a stack of broken fish baskets. A subtle energy pulses here, different from the sunlit buzz of morning. This is the moon trade lane. Though no one calls it that out loud, it's where the market doesn't quite end, but changes mood completely. The sun sets slow in Tonga, like a sleepy performer dragging out their final bow. As the light dims, the vendors don't leave. They transform. Gone are the wide displays and cheerful bartering. The pies are tucked under heavier leaves. The fish is gone. The fruit, too. What's left are bundles, whispers, and a kind of practiced nonchalance that invites curiosity and denies it in the same breath. You pass a pair of girls pretending not to flirt while arranging bundles of taro. Their laughter is soft, conspiratorial. One nudges the other too hard. A banana falls over, and a rooster. Not that rooster tries to steal it. He's shooed away with a sandal and a blush. Here, the market becomes personal. Couples walk a little closer. Elders sit slightly apart but watch everything with practiced eyes. Someone plays a nose flute from the edge of the banyan trees. The sound is both silly and haunting, like a lullaby played by someone who doesn't want you to fall asleep just yet. You find a stall lit by a single fish oil lamp. Its glow is low, flickering, casting uneven gold across a series of tightly wrapped pie bundles arranged in a perfect spiral. The vendor, a woman with moonlight-colored hair, gestures without speaking. You step closer. "These are courting pies," she says at last, voice hushed. But not for just anyone. They're flavored for intent. You raise an eyebrow. She explains, each pie is made with a different blend of honey and root. Some sweet, some sharp, some layered with fermented coconut cream or smoked cassava. Each combination signals a message, sent wordlessly to the intended recipients. You send a pie, she says, and if they understand the flavor, they'll send one back. If not, you eat it yourself and pretend that was always the plan. Historians still argue whether this flavor as language tradition was truly widespread or simply a poetic exaggeration passed down by love-struck cooks. But written colonial journals do note the odd frequency of gift pies appearing between households, often followed by marriages, or at the very least, suspicious amounts of blushing. The vendor hands you a small pie wrapped in woven ginger leaf. This one means maybe. You don't ask who it's for. Maybe she doesn't know. Maybe she always gives strangers. Maybe. You walk on. A boy runs past with a bundle of fireflies cupped in his hands. He opens them under a mat, releasing light like a breath. The vendor nods her thanks. The glow lights her pies just enough to lure in a customer without summoning mosquitoes. Someone has started a small fire near the edge of the market, not for cooking, just for mood. Around it, elders tell stories. You sit, drawn by the warmth and the gentle crackle of palm fronds. One man tells the tale of a couple who courted entirely through pies, never speaking. She sent a pie with toasted coconut and lime. He responded with banana and smoked sea salt. She sent 2 pies. He sent one with fermented taro and hibiscus honey. They married, he says, then divorced a year later over a custard dispute. The group cackles. Another story follows of a pie that changed hands 7 times in one day, each time wrapped tighter, until it eventually exploded under the heat of the sun and was declared emotionally unstable. A goat ate it. The goat was later seen headbutting a tree for no reason. Fringe folklore holds that moonlight pie exchanges were often more symbolic than successful, that the real magic was not in the receiving but in the sending. It allowed people to hope without saying too much, to long without looking foolish, and in a village as tightly woven as this one, that was no small freedom. You unwrap your maybe pie and take a bite. It tastes exactly like the color dusk would be if you could eat it. Soft, honeyed, a little smoky, with a strange aftertaste of wild mint. You smile. Somewhere, a pair of feet pass you on the path bare. Quick, carrying a wrapped pie and a grin too wide to be innocent. You wonder who it's for. Maybe the nose flutist. Maybe you. Probably not. Someone behind you starts playing a shell horn, deep and slow, marking the final breaths of the market. Peas are wrapped tighter. Conversations grow softer. Couples slip away down trails you hadn't noticed in daylight. You watch the embers of the fire fade, and you realize something funny. You never bought a single pie on purpose, but you've eaten 7, and each one said something different. You rise slowly, stretching limbs that have gone soft with pie and storytelling, and drift toward a part of the market you hadn't explored, maybe because no one mentioned it, or maybe because it only exists once the stars begin to show. It's smaller here, tighter, tucked into the crook of a hill like a secret. The mats are different, thicker, darker, made from woven bark rather than the usual palm or pandanus. The goods are sparse. A few leaves, a few jars, but what everyone seems to be gathered around is nothing. No pies, no fish, no root bundles. Just a single standing sign, scratched onto driftwood and wedged into the soil. No baked goods beyond this point. A woman seated nearby catches your puzzled stare and gestures you closer. She pats the mat beside her, as if you've just arrived at a family reunion you forgot you were invited to. You've heard of it. Yes, she asks. The island that banned baking. You blink. She smiles. Sit. I'll tell it better than the wind. And so, you do. The tale begins with a tiny island just east of Tonga, small enough to walk across before a nap, big enough for 4 families and one very opinionated priestess. According to her, baking changed food too much. It erased its story. Boiling was fine. Sun warming was sacred. But fire made food forgetful. The priestess, whose name was Lika, and who once banished a taro plant for being too proud, declared that all baked goods were to be abolished. No roasted yams, no grilled fish, and absolutely no pies with browned edges. At first, the villagers protested. Who was she to tell them how to treat a tuber? Then came the signs, yams refusing to soften, fish spoiling faster than usual, a mysterious rash shaped like a spatula appearing on someone's arm. Lika said, "See, the fire disrespects the spirit. Cook with patience, or not at all." And the people listened. Historians still argue whether the island-wide baking ban was real or just folklore. There's no physical evidence, no burnt crusts buried in ceremonial pits, but the story persists across several villages, and a few elders insist it's more than a bedtime tale. The woman next to you nods solemnly. "We don't bake here." Either. She says, "Not officially. You want roasted cassava. Take a canoe." You ask why the rule stuck. "Surely someone tried." She chuckles. "They did. Once. Young man tried to roast breadfruit behind his hut. That night, a coconut fell through his roofs, missed him by an inch, and cracked open with no water inside. A dry coconut. You tell me what that means." You decide not to guess. There's a fringe belief that the spirits of food itself rebel against baking in certain places. That fire alters the food's spirit path, its mana, too drastically. And when that balance is upset, everything from weather to relationships can go off kilter. Better to fold, to sun, to ferment. Let the food choose itself. A vendor across the way lays out a single honey pie wrapped in ash-gray leaves. You wander over. She sees your curiosity and whispers, "This one's borderline, just barely warmed." But if anyone asks, it's raw. You nod. You'd hate to get her coconutted. She hands it to you, wrapped in a bit of woven bark, and you realize it's not just a treat. It's a rebellion in disguise. It smells Daring, like honey with something faintly toasty. Barely traceable, you eat it slowly, like you're participating in a secret. The woman smiles. See, just enough edge to remind you where the sun ends. Nearby, a young man is selling bundles of forbidden pies, clearly labeled as such. He doesn't actually have any, he just whispers the idea of them. Piece folded at midnight under a torch. He says, swirled with roasted cacao, sworn to secrecy. You ask how much? He grins. You can't buy a rumor. He says, you just borrow it. You sit again by the driftwood sign and listen as the stars arrive overhead. One blink at a time, someone begins a low song about the island that once tried to bake a pie in secret, and the wave that came up and stole the fire itself. The melody rises, dips, meanders. No one claps. It isn't that kind of song. The woman next to you hands you a square of ginger root bark wrapped in leaf. For dreams, she says, keeps the fire away. You tuck it into your pocket, next to the bark charm from earlier. And the flower petal you don't remember picking up. You're collecting fragments now, pieces of this world that make no sense and yet feel perfectly natural. You rise, take one last look at the no baked goods sign, and nod in solidarity. Some places aren't meant for fire. Some pies are meant to whisper, not shout. The stars settle into their places overhead like gossiping elders, each twinkle a raised eyebrow. The market now breathes slower, heavier with stories, lighter on goods. Most of the pies have been sold or traded. What's left isn't inventory. It's memory. You make your way to the far western edge of the market, where the mats look different again, not just older, wiser. Some of them are nearly translucent with age, their frayed edges stitched over and over with bark thread and honey-stained cloth. You step softly, sensing you're on hallowed ground, or at least extremely sentimental ground. This is where the story mats are laid. You settle beside a woman hunched over a pie crust that's been sliced but not eaten. She doesn't offer it. It's not for sharing. It rests on a mat that's more patchwork than original weave. Its colors faded into sepia tones. Around her, others sit in loose clusters, all facing inward, toward the mats, not each other. You ask if this is some kind of museum. She laughs, soft and rasped. No, child. Museums are where things forget who they are. These mats remember. She gestures to the fabric beneath her. Coconut fiber, banana bark, hibiscus thread. Embedded in the weave are bits of shell, honey-colored twine. Even old labels from long-gone pie bundles. And if you look closer still, you begin to see it. Crumbs, dozens, hundreds, pressed into the very fibers. Pie crumbs fossilized by time and carelessness. A timeline written in sugar and starch. Each mat, she tells you, holds the history of a family, where they traded, who they loved, what they cooked when someone died. The spills and burns and accidental smears are never scrubbed away. They're sewn over, preserved. Clean mats, she says, are liars. Historians still argue whether these mats were meant to be narrative records or simply utilitarian objects that happen to collect stories over time. Some early anthropologists dismiss them as overused domestic tools, but a few field notes mention mats that were spoken to before market day, as if asking permission to sit. A man 2 mats over begins humming not a song, exactly, but a tone. Low and even, he presses his palm to a knot of fabric and mutters a word, a name, then another. The others join in slowly, hands tracing worn spirals, pressing into soft patches of ash-brown fiber, as though tuning an instrument made from generations. You're invited to place your hand on a mat too. It's warm, surprisingly so, and smells faintly of turmeric, smoke, and something sweet, maybe old honey. You close your eyes. For a moment, the market disappears. All you hear is rustling leaves, waves in the distance, the breath of those seated around you. You imagine the mat beneath you as a book, a diary, a confession scribbled in crumbs. When you open your eyes, the woman beside you offers a small wrapped pie, not to eat, to hold. It's cool, perfectly formed, tied with 3 loops of a golden bark string. This was made for someone who never came back, she says, but the pie waited. The mat kept it. You nod and set it gently in your lap. Some fringe oral traditions suggest that when someone passed away far from home, their family would prepare a final pie, wrap it, and place it on the mat where they once sat. Over time, the pie would harden, ferment, and eventually crumble, rejoining the mat, absorbed into memory, a kind of sweet burial, a legacy in root and sugar. One mat near you has a large burn mark in the center. Someone tried to cook a pie on it decades ago, thinking they'd save time. The mark remains. A joke now. Every so often, someone places a fake roasted pie on that spot and lights a tiny lantern beside it. For luck, they say, or to annoy the spirits. You laugh softly with the others. An older man begins tracing a path through the mats with a stick pointing, naming names you don't recognize. He pauses near one mat with an unusually symmetrical pattern. This one, he says, was used by a chief who folded his own pies. Every one. Said it helped him think. His wife said it just helped him avoid conversation. You imagine that chief now, solemnly folding pie after pie while pointedly not listening to political arguments. Iconic. A young girl near the back pulls a pie from under her mat. It's tiny, no bigger than your thumb, and wrapped in a sliver of leaf. Baby pie. Someone whispers. First try. She unwraps it proudly, revealing a blob of mashed root barely held together by a dab of honey. Everyone cheers like she's won a contest. She made memory. As the night deepens, the mats begin to be rolled, not quickly. Not like cleanup, but more like bedtime. Carefully, one fold per breath. The crumbs stay in place. No one brushes them off. To do so would be erasure. Before you go, someone hands you a scrap of mat. Not full size. Just a patch maybe the size of your palm with a single embedded seed pressed into the corner. Start your own. They say, if it doesn't crumble, you're doing it wrong. You tuck it carefully into your basket. Between the bark charms and your last uneaten pie, the mats are rolled. The people drift off. The stories settle like crumbs in soft folds, and the market sleeps. By now, the market should be empty, but it's not. You step cautiously through the quiet, expecting to find only footprints and fruit peels, maybe a forgotten sandal or two. Instead, you find something else entirely. Absence with intention. The stalls are gone. The mats are rolled. But where they were, you see traces, ghosts of shape and color, rings in the soil, sticky dark spots where pies once steamed, a peeled lime rind curled like a question mark, the vague indentation of someone's elbow, and, faintly, footprints. Not many, but enough to unsettle. Some go in circles, some vanish mid-path, like their owners took off flying. Others trail in single file toward the forest's edge, weaving between palm trunks like they were following something unseen. You follow one set barefoot, narrow, and coated in dried honey. That's not a metaphor. The footprints glisten slightly in the moonlight. Actual honey, dried into the prints. Like varnish. You stoop to touch one, and your fingers come away sweet and a little sticky. You lick it without thinking. Not your best decision, but also not your worst. It tastes floral, slightly toasted, familiar. You follow the trail. Slowly, the trees close in overhead, casting long, waving shadows across the path. You pass a mat folded and forgotten beneath a breadfruit tree. It's empty, except for a single pie crust, picked clean and sitting like a crown. The footprints lead you deeper into the grove, where the air grows cooler and quieter, like you've stepped behind the curtain of the market stage. You feel as though you're intruding on something not quite secret but certainly private. Then you see it. A small, flickering light up ahead, low to the ground. You crouch, approach slowly, and peek into a clearing. There's a circle of figures, maybe a dozen, seated on the ground. No mats, no baskets, just shadows and leaf bundles. They're not speaking. Each holds a pie, still wrapped, not eating, just holding, cradling. You wait, you watch. Finally, one of them unwraps their bundle and places the pie on the ground before them. Another does the same, and another. The pies form a ring, glistening under moonlight. Their surface is unbroken. Then the singing starts. Not loud, not melodic, even. Just sound, gentle, rhythmic, like breath learning to hum. The tune swells and dips, like tidewater brushing against a reef. One voice, then two, then all of them, and then the pies begin to vanish. One by one, the pies sink slowly into the soil. No hands touching them, no bird stealing them, just fading, as if the ground accepts them like offerings, or stories, or secrets. You don't breathe. You've heard stories about this. Everyone has, but no one ever admits it out loud. It's a kind of whispered market legend that after the final sale, after the laughter and the flirting and the scandal and the songs, there's one more trade to be made. Not for food, not for goods, for balance. Some pies are never meant to be eaten. They're meant to be given back. Fringe accounts call it the return. Anthropologists don't write about it seriously. It's too hard to document, too subtle, too sacred. But here you are, watching it happen. After the final pie dissolves into the earth, the figures rise slowly. No applause, no speeches, just a deep silence. Like the soil has whispered thank you. They walk out one by one, leaving no footprints, just one thing. A single pie, unwrapped, placed at the center of the clearing. It's still warm, and it's yours. You step forward slowly, reverently, and sit before it. You don't know the rules. You don't know if there are rules, but you reach out, lift the pie, and hold it gently. It smells like every moment of the day you just live sun on leaf, salt in the air, laughter under the mat, the faint fear of being wrong, the joy of being forgiven. You take one bite. It tastes like closing your eyes. You don't remember falling asleep, but you must have. Because when you open your eyes, the stars have shifted and the pie is gone. Not finished, not stolen, just gone. As if it was never there. You sit up slowly, joints reluctant, eyes blurry. The clearing is empty now. The footprints, the circle of silent figures, even the little embers of moonlight that once lit the ring, all faded. The forest around you is thick with that pre-dawn hum, the invisible vibration of the world just before it decides to wake again. You rise and follow the faintest path back toward the village. Your feet know the way. Your hands still smell faintly of leaf and honey and something else, something like memory. The market, when you return, is in its final dream. The kind of sleep a place takes when it's content. Everything has been packed, stacked, or vanished. The breeze has brushed away the last peels. The mats have been rolled tight and stowed beneath awnings. The only evidence that anything ever happened here is a faint sweet scent rising from the dirt and footprints, yours now, and a few others, pressed softly into the earth like notes left on a page. You walk slowly, passing each familiar space, the clay pot corner, now bare. The rooster's favorite perch, now occupied by a sleepy cat with an eye half open in judgment. The whisper mats rolled into tight scrolls and bound with bark twine. You find Male's mat, remember her? The first pie vendor you met, with the knowing grin and the citronella wipe. Her mat is folded, but a single banana leaf sits atop it, curled like a comma. Not an accident, a farewell. A rooster crows somewhere, but it sounds half-hearted, like he too needs more sleep. You step beyond the edges of the market, into the wide, open space of morning. The sky hasn't changed much, still star-dotted, still dark, but there's a blush on the horizon now. The kind that promises light but isn't quite ready to deliver. You pass the grove where the fireless pies once warmed on stone. The rocks are cool now, dew-beaded, but faint rings of honey still cling to their centers. You pass a girl stringing lime peel bracelets onto a branch, her hands moving on instinct. She doesn't look up, but hums a tune you remember, a lullaby, maybe, or a weather warning, or both. You pass the driftwood sign that still says, "No baked goods beyond this point." You nod to it, like an old friend, and keep walking. Finally, you reach the bluff, the one that overlooks the sea. You sit there, barefoot, sticky-fingered, basket on your lap. Inside, just a few things remain. A bark knot from the cursed pot vendors, a scrap of mat with a crumb pressed into its thread, a bracelet made of dried lime peel and saltgrass, a folded leaf with no pie inside, only a swirl of golden honey dried to a glimmering curl, and one bark-wrapped pie, untouched. You unwrap it slowly. It smells like forgiveness, like memory, like everything you didn't ask for but needed. You don't eat it. You place it on the earth beside you. You sit and wait and listen to the sound of the tide brushing against itself in the distance. The sky softens, the world stirs, and in your lap, your fingers still glisten faintly with honey. And now, as the sky brightens gently beyond the palm trees, and the last dream of the market curls away like leaf smoke, you begin to settle into the quiet. Your hands are still sweet. Your breath still carries a trace of something ancient, something warm and strange and deeply human. You remember the sound of whispered barters, the warmth of sun-baked stone under your palm, the way the pie breathed as it cooled beside you. You remember the child's first attempt, the rooster's proud trial, and the hush of the secret return. Everything was a story. Every step, a stanza, every pie, a paragraph. And now it's all folding inward, slowly, like the leaf around a pie too good to share, like memory tucking itself back into the soft corners of your mind, content to rest, but ready to return whenever you need it again. Your body grows heavier now, your thoughts slower, softer. The wind outside your window hums, faint and steady, like a voice you've known forever. Let that sound carry you. Let the story settle in your chest like a well-folded pie, warm, quiet, and just a little sticky around the edges. The market sleeps now. You should too. You're safe. You're full. You're remembered. Good night.